Joining me now is Congressman Dan Meuser of Pennsylvania's 9th Congressional District. Representative Meuser is a member of the Small Business Committee. He's also the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Economic Growth, Tax, and Capital Access. Congressman Meuser, it's great to talk to you today. And, we're talking, kind of going around the country, looking at small business, what mattered in recovery, what are some of the lag issues. I know that you have been someone who's tuned in on the economic dynamics of what's going on out there. As you look at small businesses and what matters now as we go forward, what do you think they most need?
Well, great to be with you. Certainly, we worked hand in hand with small business along the way during the COVID crisis and certainly the recovery. PPP program, although not perfect, was a tremendous lifeline for the small businesses throughout Pennsylvania, throughout the country, certainly throughout my district. Me and my team, we worked, as I said, in a very intense manner during the course of the original PPP coming out. We worked very hard as well to get PPP extensions and to just set up the initiative so as it truly worked out in the end as it was intended to do, to allow businesses to maintain their livelihoods and keep their employees with them and not have to go on the unemployment payrolls. We, as I think you know, had some real pushback from the approach of the Pennsylvania governor's office, which was quite difficult. It was there were actions taken that could have been smarter and yet maintained a high level of safety. They closed down many businesses based upon something known as life sustaining, which was difficult. So we and the small business throughout Pennsylvania had to battle through that quite a bit. We all wanted to be safe, but we needed to let livelihoods continue. And the idea of closing down Main Street, keeping all the big box stores open, well, frankly, didn't make sense to anyone. But nevertheless, we fought through it. Our restaurants continue to suffer. Many businesses, of course, did unfortunately go out of business, but it was a fight. And I'm very glad to be on the Small Business Committee and be working on the continued PPP issues, working with the banks, but advocating for small business. In my district, 70% of those that are working, the workforce, is employed by small business. So extremely important. As well as farms. Many of our farms throughout my district are small businesses. So we're there for them too.
And they are the backbone of this economy. Another interview I did recently, in fact, yesterday, with former Secretary of the Treasury, Lawrence Summers, is that while he supports the infrastructure efforts the administration is making, he's worried that we're overheating the economy, that inflation is on the way, that we've got to put some brakes on some of the spending, and he's worried about it getting too fired up. It sounds a little bit like some of the cautionary advice that have come from your Twitter feed. Are you and Larry Summers sort of on the same page?
Well, I like on occasion being on the same page with Larry Summers. Yeah, look, I'm all for a transportation infrastructure package. I like revitalization being added to that. Frankly, we have many stressed cities throughout my district and throughout Pennsylvania and throughout America. I could use that boost. This bill is $2.3 trillion. I think we know that nearly 92% of it goes towards things that aren't described as infrastructure, certainly not anywhere near traditional infrastructure. So yes, I am for a more targeted approach, which maybe we will get, right? We are hearing the Senate bill came out, it's $800 billion. Perhaps they would for many of the green New Deal ideas and some of the non-infrastructure, now defined as infrastructure, may be part of a separate bill. We must be very, very concerned with the spend here. Yet on the same note, I'm for a TNI and our bill, but do the math breakdown. If Pennsylvania, for instance, received $15 billion, let's even call it $20 billion, work that math, we're the fifth largest state. That would equate to about a $500 to $600 billion bill for the nation.
Right.
Pennsylvania could issue bonds on most of that money and create a liquidity of nearly, or investments up to $70 billion. That's a game changer for Pennsylvania. So these excesses are very unfortunate because it may keep us from actually engaging in a T&I bill, quite frankly, which was not done during the Trump administration because, frankly, Speaker Pelosi and Democrat leadership didn't want to give the president that so-called win. So now we may have an opportunity, but they've taken it way too far. As Larry Summers says, spend is enormous. So we have inflationary issues, we have interest rate issues, we have currency issues, we have the dollar being the reserve issues, and then we got a little thing, which is a big thing, of taxes. That is a huge concern, particularly for small businesses, but particularly for large corporations in Pennsylvania. So there are a lot of concerns with this Biden administration T&I plan.
Well, I was going to ask you about the tax proposals and tax bills. There's been some, discussion of estate taxes, which I know would hit a lot of small business owners. But you've also got, various looks at what the corporate tax rate ought to be. Where are you on that? Are you? We hear that some members of the Republican caucus don't mind an increase, but not to 28. Do you think there's some scale in there that works for businesses as you've seen it? And what are your broader concerns about some of the tax proposals from the president?
Well, there's a reason we got down to nearly 3% unemployment average for the nation. And it was the Tax and Jobs Act during the Trump administration was the biggest reason for it. We lowered from 35% to 21%, as you well know, the CNIT, corporate net income tax rate. The whole world got competitive. America did not. Ireland got an effective tax rate of a corporate net tax rate 12%. The UK was 20%. China, communist China, was 25%. We lowered it to 21%, with the whole idea of repatriating, bringing manufacturing back, and thriving our economy. As well, there was a 20%, actually 20% reduction for small business. Most small businesses I know, and when I do my small business town halls, tell me they were able to hire. They were able to strengthen their business. One thing liberals really don't understand is that when you lower their taxes and so-called they make more of a margin, small businesses, any business, doesn't take that money and put it in their pocket and say, I'm richer. But what they do is they invest that in their company because what they care about is long-term strength and surviving and long-term growth as opposed to short-term profits, and that's what happened. That's why unemployment was so low. That's why wages started going up. That's why our economy was booming. So I'm very, very concerned. The President Biden is talking about raising CNIT up to 28%, eliminating the small business tax relief, raising capital gains to 43%, which is a killer not on the sophisticated investor, but on those with pension plans, those with 401ks, those with regular investments,
right,
in the markets. So I don't know what they're doing, but it runs counter to the idea of making America economically strong. It runs counter to.
Dan, let me just ask you finally. I get the privilege of interviewing a lot of members of Congress, senators and House members. Some of them were governors, some of them were mayors, and that's a certain conversation. I interview a lot of doctors. There's a doctor caucus. But there are also members of Congress who were, ran businesses, and you were one of these. You were president of Pride Mobility Products, built it into a worldwide industry leader, CEO. Is there a different literacy about public policy and business that you and your colleagues who have that same profile have, that you want to share with others out there in this space? Sometimes this do no harm, right? The Hippocratic Oath in business. But I'm just interested, as a businessman who became a member of Congress, what are the things out there that the policy community needs to better understand?
Great question. Thank you. Taxes do matter. They're not the only thing clearly that matters, but tax is a cost. and you can have no taxes, but you must have a competitive tax rate. That's all that was done in the Tax and Jobs Act of the Trump administration. It became competitive. Chambers of Cisco, I'll never forget him saying, just make it close. We don't have to be the lowest, but we will repatriate billions and we'll bring back jobs. Apple could bring back jobs. When Steve Jobs said those jobs will never come back, not at those high level of tax rates. So it's very meaningful for subsidiaries, for C Corps, for repatriation, not just of dollars, but of the investments being made, as well from a regulatory standpoint. Many regulations, of course, were improved during the Trump years. Another reason why we had the best economy in Pennsylvania in 100 years, but in our country in 50 years. But states have to follow. I'm very concerned about where Pennsylvania is versus other states. We now have a ranking in the neighborhood of number 42 out of 50. And lo and behold, we have a CNIT state tax of 9.99%. We have other regulations that are very, very challenging for large businesses and small businesses. Yet on the same note, Texas, which is booming, and not just for businesses, but for people, that's what matters, for communities, for revenues, for their schools. You go to Texas, every town looks like King of Prussia in Pennsylvania. It looks like they're building Disneyland. And in Pennsylvania, due to the draconian outlook of liberalism, frankly, and really not understanding what drives the economy, we do not look like that, and we're not heading in that direction either. And I'll add this. I was the Secretary of Revenue for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for 4 years. The best way of raising revenue is by job creation, not by raising taxes, but by creating more taxpayers. You do the math on what a new job creates on the federal side, but also the state side, that's where your revenue comes from. That's where improvements to communities come from. That's where the schools do better. That's what quality of life advances. And by the way, that's the state that people love. Don't leave, right? Pennsylvania, as you saw in the census just yesterday, we're losing a congressional seat because people are leaving. Or our growth is far slower than other states. So I think that in itself should be the measure of how well a state is doing for its people. And Pennsylvania has fallen behind. We need the right governor in Pennsylvania to bring people back, bring business back, bring quality of life back, be competitive, and be, in fact, the next Texas.
Well, Congressman Dan Meuser of Pennsylvania, really appreciate your candid thoughts today. Thanks so much for talking to us on our small business recovery tour. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.